leading up to
Oh, he needs this.
No, I lost my sheets. Okay, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to the January 5th, 2023 METC Commission meeting. I am Kanak Aguirre. I will be your chair for the next, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. We'll see. But I'd like to note that we are starting our meeting at 7:08. Apologies for being a little bit behind, but I'm sure we'll get through things quickly tonight. We are, as always, live streaming the meeting, so we ask the commissioners speak up so that those participating electronically will be able to listen through our YouTube page and via Zoom. And we have a couple of extra microphones on the tables. Yeah, well, we've got 3 out here now. We just, oh, another one out there. Okay, great. Moving on up with the microphones. So please remember to keep your paper shuffling and any side conversations to a minimum or as quiet as possible because the microphones will pick them up. And tonight we have 3 commissioners participating electronically. We have Nick Clemente, who is joining virtually from Loudoun County due to a medical reason. Sarah Bagley is joining virtually from out of state for business reasons. And we have our Director of DRPT, Ms. Jen DeBrule, who is serving as Mr. Smedberg's alternate tonight and is participating electronically from Richmond, which means she is further than 60 miles from our location. And as I just mentioned, she will also be voting since Mr. Smedberg is not attending tonight. Our executive director has confirmed that we do have quorum. But before we get started, a quick shout out to Miss Libby Garvey. She's looking surprised, but last month, COG, our Washington Council of Governments, recognized Ms. Garvey with the Elizabeth and David Skull Metropolitan Public Service Award. So congratulations. Always nice to start off with something fun. All right, so I'm hoping everybody had a chance to look over the agenda. We're going to cover a lot of ground, but we should be able to do it quickly. Quick note, the city of Fairfax will be appointing their member to NVTC in the next couple of weeks to replace Mr. Meyer. But I do believe that we have the new mayor of Fairfax City, Ms. Catherine Reed. Just want to point her out. So welcome, Mayor Reed. And for the public hearing and public comment, just a few things to go over for our public hearing. During agenda item number 5, we will hold a public hearing to solicit public comments on MVTC's proposed work plan for the coming year. For those who wish to speak, if you haven't signed up yet, please add your name to the list. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Also, as we do each month, MVTC continues to seek general public comments. Ms. Matthijs, any comments for this month?
We did not have any comments unique to this other than those that signed up for the public comment.
Wonderful. All right. So on to action item number 2, the minutes and meeting summary. So from December 1st, questions, comments, concerns? Everybody, a quick second to look it over.
Move approval of the minutes.
Thank you. Motion from Ms. Crystal to move the minutes. Is there a second? Second from Mr. DeFerranti. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So aye from Mr. Clemente, Mr. Brule and Ms. Bagley.
Aye, that's Bagley.
Ms. DeBrule. We might take it as an abstain. All right, so 1 abstention, otherwise passes unanimously with ayes. Okay, so with that passed, we have the meeting summary of the December 5th annual joint METC and PRTC legislative forum. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting summary? Motion from Mr. Skyle, second from Ms. Garvey. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye for Mr. Clemente, aye for Ms. Bagley, and we're gonna do an abstain for Mr. Brule. The motion passes.
I will abstain. I was not present.
Okay, and a second abstention from Ms. Patrick as well. All right, let's see. Yeah, I didn't think we were gonna make it to 10 minutes. We'll see. So now we're gonna be looking at the approval of the recommended slate of officers for 2023. The executive committee recommends the following slate of officers for 2023. As our chair, Ms. Dalia Palchik from Fairfax County. As vice chair, Mr. Matt DeFerranti from Arlington County. And as secretary treasurer, Mr. David Snyder from the city of Falls Church.
Mr. Chairman, move approval.
Thank you, John. Motion by Mr. McKay, second from Mr. Letourneau. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye for Mr.
Aye.
Clemente. Aye for Ms. Bagley. Abstention from Mr. Rule. So the motion passes. Congratulations to our new officers. If you all don't mind joining me over by the flagpole. All right, you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
That I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as an officer of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
as an officer of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay.
I'm passing the gavel now to our new chair, Ms. Palchik.
Right.
Congratulations.
Well, a very happy New Year to all. Thank you. Very delighted about our new board. Thank you so much to those who have served. Chair Aguirre. Let me turn the page. Our very special resolution, our moment now, is on behalf of the entire commission. I want to acknowledge Kenneth Aguirre's exceptional service as a chair during 2022. We have a resolution prepared for Mr. Aguirre commending him for his service as chair. I'm not going to read the entire resolution. I will let you go ahead and read it, but I would like to highlight a few of Chair Aguirre's major accomplishments as chair, which are excerpts taken from the resolution. Mr. Aguirre, Panic, has been an advocate for equity in all aspects of transit, including zero and reduced fare initiatives that benefit those most in need, multilingual community outreach and marketing, and transit-oriented economic developments in Northern Virginia. In 2022, Mr. Aguirre led MVTC during its 58th year of operations and as chair under his leadership at MVTC. He engaged with the WMATA committee and other leaders and stakeholders to develop the 5th annual report and performance and condition of WMATA, including a wonderful video. He supported the award of over $15 million in commuter choice funding for 7 multimodal projects that will benefit I-66 full pairs. He championed MVTC's efforts to coordinate effective transit options for riders during several metro shutdowns. He advocated for MVTC's ongoing work to bring bus rapid transit service to the Route 7 corridor, and we have exciting news about that today. And he oversaw the launch of MVTC's Nova Transit Data Dashboard, an absolutely wonderful interactive tool to share and explore significant amounts of transit data in a very user-friendly way. And for the data wonks out there, I hope you're having a field day with it. And finally, he supported the commission's efforts to develop the Northern Virginia Zero Emission Bus Strategic Plan, a regional effort to ensure collaboration on ZEB policy and implementation while enabling the region to be leaders in federal funding. So to that, can I please have a motion to approve the resolution of commendation for Chair Aguirre?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, Ms. Crystal, do I have a second?
Second.
Multiple seconds. We'll give it to Ms. Libby today, Ms. Garvey. Any further discussion? All right, with that, let's have a roll call vote. Let me begin with our online votes. Online through, we have Ms. Bagley, Mr. Clemente, Mr. Brule.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, here, Ms. Bagley and Mr. Clemente. Now, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. My left ear, right? All right, thank you. All right. I don't know if I should say this, but any closing comments, Mr. Aguirre?
Well, I'll be brief. You all know I like to run a tight ship and a tight meeting. So I don't want to add extra minutes just on my behalf, but I really do want to say it's been an honor and privilege to serve as a chair last year and all of a few minutes of this year. You know, I'm a big believer in regionalism, and this honestly has been my favorite assignment out of the assignments that I have on city council. And so it's just really a pleasure to be here with all of you, and there's just a lot of really amazing work that we're doing. What a great staff. Thank you to all the staff in the back. Mr. Tice, thank you for your leadership as well. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Well, I know we here could not do what we do without the incredible team, so very much appreciate the work. Moving forward, we are on action item 3C. To approve resolution number 2492, approve the selection of MVTC representatives to various boards. Each January, MVTC appoints and or reconfirms its appointments to the WMATA Board of Directors, the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board, and the Virginia Transit Association Board of Directors. Resolution number 2492 has been updated and is provided as a blue sheeted item that reflects changes since December 21st, when the meeting materials were posted. So you should all have these in front of you. The one change is appointing Libby Garvey as an alternate on the VRE Operations Board.
Okay. I'm not blue sheeted.
She's not pushing. We do have, yes, on the VRE board, we have Libby Garvey as well as Kenneth Aguirre. And the other principals. Resolution number 2492 includes the WMATA Board appointments, with Paul Smedberg continuing as the Commonwealth Principal Appointee to the WMATA Board, with Kenneth Aguirre as his alternate, and Matt Letourneau as the MVTC Principal Appointee, with Walter Alcorn as his alternate. Mr. Letourneau's current term expired on January 3rd, 2023, and the recommendation is to appoint him to another 4-year term. The resolution also appoints the members of the VRE Operations Board and the Virginia Transit Association Board of Directors. The membership remains the same for both, with the exception of Arlington County's selection of Katie Crystal to serve as a principal member on the VRE Operations Board, and Libby Garvey serve as her alternate. Is that correct? Okay, excellent, wonderful. So you should all have the full board slate in front of you. And can I please have a motion to approve resolution number 2492? All right, our vice chair moved, and a second. Second, I heard Senator Evan. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we have Ms. Bagley, Mr. Clemente is aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries unanimously. See, so there we go. And now we are on to action item 3D. Approve the recommended 2023 MVTC committee membership. As outlined in MVTC's bylaws, MVT has four committees, the Executive Committee, the WMATA Committee, Legislative and Policy Committee, and the Program Advisory Committee. Each January, the commission approves a committee roster. You have an updated committee roster for 2023 at your place. The proposed committee chairs are as follows. Myself, Dahlia Paltrick, as MVTC Chair, will serve as the Chair of the Executive Committee. Walter Alcorn will serve as Chair of the WMATA Committee. Sarah Bagley will serve as Chair of the Program Advisory Committee, and Kenneth Aguirre will serve as the Chair of the Legislative and Policy Committees. The rest of the committee membership did not change, with the exception that Ms. Bagley will join the Executive Committee as Chair of the Program Advisory Committee. We do expect to have changes to the committee roster once the City of Fairfax appoints a new MVTC commissioner. Just a reminder that all commissioners can attend any committee meeting, and they are public meetings, and we welcome them. Can I please have a motion to approve the recommended MVTC committee membership for 2023? Moved by Mr. McKay. Can I have a second? Second by Senator Eben. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Online?
Aye.
Bagley? Good.
Aye.
Excellent. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. That again carries unanimously. And we are on to 3E, action items. This is resolution 2493, approving the designation of MVTC signatories and pension trustees. This is an administrative housekeeping item that is done every January to designate the newly appointed secretary treasurer as an MVTC signatory and pension trustee. David Snyder is listed as the new secretary treasurer on the final resolution. And please have a motion to approve resolution number 2493.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Letourneau. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Ferranti. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, I heard Ms. Bagley, Mr. Clemente. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Congratulations, I believe, Mr. Snyder. All right, well, those are our action items, very administrative, number 3. And now on to our wonderful MVTC year in review. It is always good to look back. I hope you all had a wonderful new year and see what we've accomplished over this past year. And there's been quite a bit here at MVTC. So to that, let me turn it over to Kate McTice for our year in review.
Indeed, so we have had a very busy and exciting year. Again, with the talents of our communications team, of Matt Freeman and Monique Blyther, of course, we have a video. And so we're delighted to show off video and as well as our printed annual report that is also in front of you. So I'm going to try to do my best to not pay attention to me on this, but I do hope you enjoy this overview of 2022.
Hi, I'm Kate Mattice. I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, much of the conversation on public transit has centered around trying to predict the new normal. We may look back at 2022 as the year the new normal came into focus. While the federal government and private employers have signaled a desire to bring workers back in person more often, working from home at least part of the week remains the reality for many workers. This sustained shift away from daily commuting impacts ridership of Metro and VRE while increasing traffic on our roadways. Meanwhile, we have documented strong growth in weekend ridership and rebounding toll revenues, which benefit NVTC's Commuter Choice program. Bus ridership continues to be a high point, with the number of people riding near pre-pandemic levels. Metro, VRE, and the 6 bus systems that serve Northern Virginia continue to consider how they might adjust to match service to the needs of riders. We also celebrated a monumental milestone in 2022 with the opening of Phase 2 of Metro's Silver Line. The start of service realized a 6-decade dream of bringing a train connection to Dulles International Airport and brought Loudoun County into the system. Other bright spots included tallying the first 5 years of the Commuter Choice Program, advancing the planning for our Envision Route 7 bus rapid transit system, and aiding Northern Virginia's agencies into the transition to zero-emission buses. Our region has shown resilience over the past few years, and NVTC will continue to work in the coming year to support our transit agencies and jurisdictions to keep Northern Virginia moving. To read the full NVTC annual report, visit novatransit.org.
Another excellent video. Any other comments,
I
Kate?
don't, I said, you know, it obviously, it's been a really great opportunity, as we've been able to shine the talents of the staff to be able to provide those great overviews. But indeed, we've done a lot last year. We have a lot, and I'm going to highlight things in just a couple minutes about some of the big things we've got coming ahead. But we're really, really proud of the work we've done.
Very exciting. Thank you. I know there's a lot in there, and I really appreciate that we have both the video as well as the report and the full report available online as well. And congratulations to your incredible comms team for putting this together. Any questions from commissioners for Kate? All right. Well, to that, I know we're very excited about the year ahead. So this transitions us with our budget and our work plan. We will be asked to approve the FY 2024 general and administrative budget and work plan. But before that, we'll open the meeting up for the public to comment on our work plan. This annual public comment opportunity focused on the scope of MVTC's work is required by MVTC's bylaws. Before we open for public comment, Kate, could you give us an overview of the activities planned for the commission and its staff this year?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And indeed, as was shared in December with the commission and posted online for the public review and included in your materials, NVTC does anticipate some major efforts this year. First and foremost, we do plan obviously on our continued strong and effective financial management of our public transportation funding. We're anticipating the NVTC will manage more than $315 million in funding from federal, state, regional gas tax, and coal revenues to really help our localities support public transit services provided by WMATA, VRE, and their local bus systems. We'll obviously be continuing our legislative tracking and engagement at both the state and federal levels, as well as continue to learn more about how transit's serving Northern Virginia, as all the data is going to continually be refreshed on a routine basis on that new data dashboard. Probably one of the bigger efforts that we have going on this year is going to be related to WMATA, because we know WMATA is facing a major threat to the sustainability of its operating funding within the next 18 months. And so this year, we anticipate providing a lot of analytical support to NVTC's WMATA and legislative committees, as well as the full commission on options for future WMATA operational funding. We're going to be launching a work group to conduct analysis on options for funding that would work well in a Northern Virginia context. We're going to be conducting analysis to fully understand the cost and impacts of changing the dynamic and balance between local bus service and WMATA bus service. And we'll also be getting updated findings on the economic value of Northern Virginia's transit network to the Commonwealth as a whole. We will be wrapping up the fall church focus of the mobility study for the Route 7 bus rapid transit with another round of public hearings this spring. And launching what we're very excited is going to be a new final planning stage for the Route 7 BRT as a result of our recently awarded congressional funding that's going to make possible just major progress on that project. Coming this spring, we're going to be conducting our next regional transit marketing campaign, continuing to take advantage of how people get their information, streaming services, through Waze, through radio, online in general. And in all instances, we're going to be doing a bilingual Spanish-English campaign. This spring, we will be selecting the next round of I-395 commuter choice projects. We do anticipate a very competitive process with a number of applications coming in for the approximately $43 million. And of course, in the meantime, we talked a little bit about this in the video. We've just launched our major effort to help the region look at how to implement zero emission bus on that regional scale. This spring, we're going to be launching our regional bus analysis, and this effort focuses on how our bus systems can collectively create a network to best serve Northern Virginia, including identifying new BRT opportunities. We're excited to see how this is going to be integrating and actually actively having integrated with WMATA's better bus design, and then inform any future work that the authority may do in the BRT space. Getting into the fall, we will be launching the next round of I-66 Commuter Choice Program, and also really diving into our legislative agenda for the coming General Assembly session, where we recognize that there are going to be different dynamics due to the election and the changing districts. So I think that's something just to recognize. And then finally, throughout the year, we really will be using our WMATA, our program advisory, and our legislative committees for a great deal of our work, all of which are meetings that are open to commissioners and the general public in person, and also shown on our YouTube channel. So thanks for letting me summarize. There's a lot more in the work plan, but that just gives a highlight, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's just a little light year ahead, right? No, really, really important work. Just again, want to congratulate you and our whole commission, and thank our congressional leadership for the funding for BRT 7. I know that is incredible as we talk about regionalism for our region, to have that connection in an area where there is not kind of those other straightforward public transit connections. So each year, MVTC does hold a hearing to receive public comment on our annual work plan. This year, we provided the public the opportunity to submit via an online form, video recording, email, audio recording, or in person. I do believe we have speakers here this evening, but before we ask them to come to the podium, Kate, do we have any comments on the work plan provided before this meeting?
We do have a number of comments, and I've asked Matt Friedman, our public information officer, to read out. They'll also be included in the minutes. So Matt, can you go ahead? I think you have 3 or 4.
Sure. Good morning. Or good evening. I do have 4 for you. I'm going to start with a letter from Sam Butler, who says, I was born and raised in Northern Virginia and live in the city of Falls Church. I'm writing to applaud the envisioned Route 7 BRT projects and encourage the prioritization of this project and other transit projects like this across the region. I'm also writing to encourage the study showcasing the environmental benefits of transit in Nova. There are so many positive impacts for our immediate families and communities, as well as generations to follow us, that come from environmentally aligned transit and communities that we can build today. This likewise ties into our short window to achieve our regional climate targets, which include reducing VMT by 20%, while rapidly phasing out ICE cars and ensuring 75% of new housing is built with walkable, transit-friendly activity centers. Both can be achieved through common sense economical policies like bicycle and e-bicycle rebate programs, as Denver has proven and beginning to adopt, and as well as with the expansion of transit projects like the Route 7 BRT. Every passing day is incredibly important in the world we are living in, as we've seen with recent weather extremes across the country, and the infrastructures and systems we build today will determine ways of living in our region for decades to come. Meeting and surpassing our climate and housing targets is essential, and doing so will make life better and healthier for communities across the region. If you are interested in support, input, or further collaboration to this end, please feel free to let me know. I'm glad to support these efforts to make Nova as healthy and convivial as it can be, and transit, bikes, and housing are where that work starts. So our next note is from Andrea McGinsey. She is the Executive Director of Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. From more frequent buses and trains to easier and safer multimodal access to transit stops, our region has a long way to go to becoming a truly transit-friendly region. We appreciate the efforts you are making towards this goal, and we stand ready to help in any way we can with our FACS Transit Corps volunteers. We must make the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions the top priority in all transportation decisions. And we must keep our most vulnerable citizens, from the disabled to the elderly to the children to low-income Virginians, at the center of our thinking and planning. The next one comes from Ruth Bullitt from Arlington. She says, I appreciate the Envision Route 7 project in the work plan and ask that this critical regional BRT project be prioritized. Route 7 BRT will be transformative for one of the busiest bus corridors in the state and is needed to help many existing riders, as well as support plans for walkable TOD in places like Seven Corners, Tyson's, Falls Church, and Bailey's Crossroads, where a pedestrian was recently killed. How will NVT support the WMATA Better Bus network redesign effort? It's great that NVTC is doing its own regional bus study, but we also need to ensure that the WMATA effort succeeds and that there is coordination between these two efforts. NVT should explain how it will coordinate and provide input to NVTA's regional BRT network study that is expected next year. There should be more emphasis on safe access to bus stops. I support the potential study to showcase the environmental benefits of transit in Nova. The time frame is short for the region to achieve its climate targets, which requires reducing VMT by 20%, while at the same time rapidly adopting electric vehicles. To achieve its adopted housing targets, calls for 75% of new housing to be in walkable, transit-friendly activity centers. So no more. Excuse me. Our last one tonight is from Mark Henry from Fairfax County. He's got 5 bullet points. Number 1, services like Metro should be privatized. We should not be paying for a service that is not used by all residents. Residents are taxed for Metro and still have to pay to use it. This, to me, is a form of extortion or racketeering. Number 2, each station brings more crime to the areas they are built upon. Number 3, the citizens of Loudoun County do not want or need these stations in their areas. 4, I will be calling my delegate to demand denial of funds to WMATA. I will also call my representative to demand denial of federal funds to WMATA. 5, I don't believe in any funding toward advertising. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much for reading that for us. So at this point, thank you, Matt. Do we have any members of the public? I guess it's to Ben. Do we have any members of the
Yes.
public here today?
Madam Chair, we have 3 members of the public signed up to speak.
Excellent. Speakers, please come to the podium when your name is called. State your name and the city or county in which you live for the record. You will have 3 minutes for comment. Staff will signal when 30 seconds remain.
And I have a timer on my phone too.
Ben's got the timer. All right.
First up is Bill Pugh.
Read my comment. Good evening, Chair Plumchick and board members and staff. My name is Bill Pugh. I'm with the Coalition for Smarter Growth. I also live in Alexandria. And I appreciate the opportunity that you gave the public to speak on the work plan. The coalition, our vision is for a network of walkable, transit-friendly communities as the most sustainable and equitable way for the region to grow. So we really appreciate the work that NVTC does to promote this vision. Overall, we believe the proposed work plan does a great job reflecting the core duties and addressing regional needs. You have our written comments in your packet, so I'll just summarize some of the key points. I think the element, the work plan, one that we're most excited about is the Envision Route 7 project. This will really be an amazing project for the region. And we hope that and encourage the members to continue to do more to expedite this project. It's going to require a lot of coordination across jurisdictions. And one thing to look a little bit longer term as you start to get into the project, the housing along it, we really urge you to look into prioritizing preservation of the existing affordable housing stock. I know this is not exactly within the scope of NVTC, but its jurisdictions. This is going to be critical to making sure that people that use the transit now can continue to live there and use it in the future. A few things that we would like to see NVTC prioritize as it begins to implement its work plan. One, Dr. Matthijs mentioned the coordination with the WMATA Better Bus Network redesign. We're glad to hear that that not only is NVTC doing its own study, that that there will be coordination with WMATA study and also the NVTA bus rapid transit study. And then there were two studies that were mentioned in the Transit Resource Center part of the work plan, and we hope that there's scope for staff and budget to do these. One is looking at safe access to transit stations, and you know about the safety issues on the roads. Bus riders are particularly at risk in terms of getting to stops, so we hope that can be included. And then also the study looking at the environmental benefits of transit. This can really make the case for the work that you all do, given the climate and other sustainability issues that we're urgently working towards. So again, thank you for your work plan and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. You're just on time and really appreciate your input.
Next up is Jay Corvallis.
I have to apologize. I had intended to sign up for the general comment period, so my comments aren't specific to the work plan. Happy to come back next month. Yes, I'll go ahead. Thank you. Nick Corvallis. I live in Silver Spring, but I'm here representing JBG Smith and the National Landing Business Improvement District. I highlight the role that multimodal transportation plays in supporting sustainable economic development in national landing. For those not familiar with JBG, we're a real estate investment trust with over 15.5 million square feet mixed use assets in transit oriented submarkets in the DC region. That includes National Landing, where we serve as the development partner for Amazon in their second headquarters, as well as Virginia Tech in their innovation. Multimodal transportation is National Landing's competitive advantage, helping us attract world-class companies and institutions while enhancing quality of life and reducing congestion. With 3 metro stations, 19 bus lines, 20 capital bike share docks, and nearly 30 commuter trains per day, National Landing is already one of the best connected places in the region. Indeed, a 2019 Arlington study found that over 70% of trips in National Landing are made by modes other than single occupant vehicles. Now, as described in the BID's new Mobility Next report, a link to which is included in the physical copy right in front of you, thank you. A series of planned transportation projects representing more than $4 billion of investment are poised to transform the neighborhood into a national leader for sustainable mobility. Those include the extension of our bus rapid transit system, the Crystal City Potomac Yard Transitway to serve Pentagon City, a second entrance to the Crystal City Metro Station, a new VRE station serving Amtrak, VRE, and we hope one day MARC commuter trains, and a one-of-a-kind pedestrian bridge between National Landing and National Airport. These projects were all included in the agreement between Amazon and the Commonwealth for their second headquarters, and each leverages past investments by improving and connecting existing service. This is especially true for the DCA connector and VRE station, which will enable a direct connection between VRE, MARC, and Amtrak service with the DCA. While each of these projects is exciting individually, their true benefit is in the extraordinary connectivity they enable as part of a broader network. As the BID notes in its report, once these projects are implemented, National Landing will be the most connected downtown in America, meaning no other neighborhood in the country will have as many modes of transportation going to as many places within their region as National Landing. All of this is possible thanks to decades of strategic investment and policymaking, including the NBTC's work to promote and fund quality mass transit in the region. We appreciate those efforts and encourage you to check out the link in your hard copy to learn more about how your work is supporting economic development nationally. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Corvallis. Everyone's right on time, Ben. I don't know what you're doing.
2 for 2. Robert Whitfield, please.
Well, good evening, members of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission and visitors. I'm Robert Whitfield in the Northern Virginia for the last 45 years. And I'm a member of the Fairfax County Taxpayers Alliance Board. And I've been coming to NVTC meetings for over a decade, probably about 100 meetings. And I've attended well over 5,000 meetings on transportation development and land use over the last 30 years in Northern Virginia. And unfortunately, some of the optimism of transit advocates is not shared by the facts that we've experienced post-COVID-19. And the challenge that you will face is to deal with the constraints that reduced ridership, particularly on Mondays and Fridays, face to the long-term viability of WMATA, VRE, and other entities. I am not without hope, however, that I hope that, so for instance, just to give you an example, this week I had lunch with somebody who's a tour guide at the Museum of the Bible. And he said to me something about, oh, it'd be nice if VRE had a service on Saturdays so that people could come to our museum. And so I will be writing a letter shortly, not just about the Museum of the Bible, but the entire opportunity for VRE to help increase tourism in DC on the weekend. And so I sent something this afternoon. I see Jeff McKay there. This newly announced reversible lane, bi-directional lanes on I-95. A study was done last year. Senator Scott Sarabel looking at extending the blue line to Quantico. This projected cost of $27 billion. But in the course of looking at that program, I did see that, well, in fact, I knew from having driven down the county parkway that there's an old rail line that parallels the county parkway between Newington and Port Belvoir. And sorry, I forgot the name of the gentleman at DRPT, but I suggested that that should be the priority in the next 5 years, because Port Belvoir now has something like 70,000 people. So I guess what I'm a selective person in terms of what I support, but we have to back things with financial feasibility studies, and the funding needs to be more equally applied. Right now, as far as tolls, we have very inequitable and frankly discriminatory toll practices on I-66, and something needs to be done to end that. I will be writing to you on this more shortly. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Not seeing any others. On behalf of the entire commission, I would like to thank our public for their comments, written, and those who presented them here tonight. Back at our December meeting, which feels like ages ago, the commission was briefed on the proposed budget and work plan, and you do have them in front of you. The executive committee approved both documents to be provided to the full commission for action. Kate, would you like to speak to the budget and the work plan?
Absolutely happy to do so, Madam Chair. And as we recall, last month, we did present the proposed FY24 general administrative budget and work plan. In the meeting materials provided all the budget detail, and that was included in your packet today. There have not been any changes to what was presented in December as what's being represented for approval tonight. Just as a recap, the 24 budget includes resources to accomplish that work plan, including administration of the I-66 and the I-395/95 commuter choice programs, oversight of WMATA, the management, and of course, the management of the next phase of the Envision Route 7 BRT project, I should say. The proposed budget totals $4.394 million, and it is funded primarily by the member jurisdictions through direct contributions and state aid received by NVTC. The FY24 budget does include 2 new positions, a new program analyst position to provide additional support to NVTC programs, and a new project manager position that would be managing that next phase of the Envision Route 7 project. The project manager position would be entirely funded by the project budget and from resources that are outside of our state aid of our localities. A provision for cost of living and performance-based increases for existing staff is also included. And both Scott and I are available to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. I have a couple questions and we'll turn it over to my colleagues. I'm on the BRT 7 thing tonight. And so very excited it's in here. If you could just explain to us a little bit in the budget for 24, what is included on the revenue side for Route 7 BRT, And then I assume the expenditure is all, well, the expenditure side as well.
So indeed, what we have is, and again, it will be a little bit of a recurring theme this evening. We are very happy to get a $2 million earmark in the latest federal appropriations law. And included with that is then the anticipated seeking of matching funds from both the state and localities to be able to provide for that project cost. And so we would be able to fully fund a lead staff person for that. The remaining of those funds would be used to for consultants to help with that support of that work.
And what's your current timing for that work this year?
So we do need to, this is going to be a Federal Transit Administration grant. So obviously we need to go through the process of applying for a federal grant. We also will be coming next month to seek approval to apply for a DRPT grant to match it. So we are behind the scenes, putting things together over the next 6 months. So we would look at really launching this in the beginning of the new fiscal year. Obviously, as soon as we have the opportunity to be able to onboard a new program manager, that's going to be very important. So our target would be starting this work as soon as we can, July 1, but it's my anticipation the federal grant, other things always take a little bit longer. But we are currently wrapping up the work on the focused City of Falls Church work right now. So we hope to just be able to continue moving forward on the project after that effort's done, if not before.
Awesome, excellent. And then one little question, I'd forgotten about it, but you have this Excellent Fellows program.
Yes.
Which I think is another great way that we bring in new ideas and sometimes possibly new staff for the future. Just wanted, if you could share with us and the public a little bit of how the Fellows program works and what we'll see this
Well,
year.
I have to say that it's possible for us to do the Fellows program because it's actually funded by DRPT. And so again, when we bring our grants next month, that's one of the grant applications we'll be applying for is another round of funding for our fellows. We do recruit current undergraduate or graduate students for that program. Right now, Silas Sullivan, who you've seen maybe on and off in different projects, he's actually just not here tonight, but he's usually here at our meetings. He's been helping us. He's a student at Virginia Tech. We also plan on bringing on a new student this coming Monday, the following Monday?
Day after Memorial.
Day after Martin Luther King. We have another fellow joining us who is a student at
GW, Masters in Public Policy.
Masters in Public Policy student to help with our communications team. The wonderful thing about this program, it's focused on bringing folks to get them to understand the transit world. And so in addition to them working on specific projects, shadowing or working directly with our program managers, we also take the opportunity to get them out to coming to WMATA meetings or other things like that. And so typically they're anywhere from 3 months to a year that we see those fellows. It's been really good.
Awesome. I just wanted to highlight it.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic program. And we have some really, the alumni we actually had a happy hour last in November where we had several of our fellow alumni join us and they're doing really amazing things throughout the region.
So, thank you, Kate. Let me open it up to any other questions from our commissioners. Is there any online? Not hearing any. Could I have a motion to approve the FY 2024 general and administrative budget and the 2023-24 work plan? Mr. McKay, with a second from Ms. Garvey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and online, I think I heard Ms. Bagley,
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Clementi, Mr. Brule.
Aye.
Awesome. All right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. Carries unanimously. And now that brings us to action items or item number 6. Our long-awaited WMATA, Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority report from our Virginia. I think it's WMATA board member.
Just me.
Just one guy.
Just me.
We've got Matt with us. If you could give us a report, please.
I can, staff helps prepare us for these and they give me a lot. I'm not gonna go through all of this, but we are well in our budget situation. We are having a meeting next week in which the finance committee will recommend a public docket. So similar to how I'm sure most of you do your county or city budgets, you can only ultimately vote on what you advertise. So you have to advertise everything that's kind of on the table. And so we put out a call for the 8 of us on the board to bring anything that is not in the general manager's budget. I don't anticipate there being too much. I will mention a couple of highlights from the GM's budget. Hopefully you've seen a little bit about it. It does restore or restructure the 16M service in Arlington, connecting Skyline to Crystal City every 12 minutes. There is some real changes. Yep. There's some changes to the Metro Rail mileage rates in an effort to simplify the Metro fare system. Basically, the mileage rate is being standardized at 40 cents per mile after 3 miles, and the max fare is increasing to $6.50. Rail base fare actually goes down a little bit to $2, which matches what the bus fare is. If you kind of look at the overall net out of this, it does depend on how you use the system. It will be a modest increase for a lot of users. And the max fare is going from $6 to $6.50. The thought process from the board on this is we obviously do have a budget gap. It's a much bigger one going into the following budget year, but we want to be able to show that we are contributing to closing the gap and putting some things on the table. We haven't had any kind of fare increase at WMATA for 5 years. This is not a big increase. Like I said, it's actually going to depend a little bit on exactly how you use the system. But it's something that's worth noting. It's being paired with a low income fare program that would provide all customers that are enrolled in SNAP a 50% discount on trips, similar to what we do with our senior and disabled reduced fares. So the overall budget gap is 185 million. The 139 of that is being proposed to be filled with using new money that's available to us for maintenance. It's a practice that we've looked at very carefully. I think the board is comfortable that the maintenance expenses being used in this case are appropriate to close the gap in the operating budget. And it's also new money that we got. We didn't get operating assistance, but we did get additional federal money from infrastructure bill to help with maintenance. So it's a good use of those fundings. The CIP is 2.4 billion and the 24 to 29 CIP is 14 billion. There's 6 different categories. It is a fiscally constrained funding plan. If you look at our 10-year need, it's about 25 billion. So we are short, but the priority of the CIP is the State of Good Repair program. I always kind of remind folks that although it's been with us a while, it still has a ways to go. There's annual investments. It's being planned very strategically with how it's being spent. And I will point out that we did receive a clean audit in all of our expenditures, which is not always a given at WMATA, but it has been over the last several years. We have a new CFO at WMATA. She was previously the deputy, so I've been working with her for some time already. And one of our missions is to continue the new tradition of clean audits. We received a performance report on how Metro was operating. There were 45.6 million trips taken in Q1, which is a little bit above the forecast, and 36% above FY 2022. Couple of initiatives that Metro has launched is Operation Helping Hands, which is more visible, more frequent Metro Transit police officers out on the street. I was talking to the general manager today about that program. You may have seen that we unfortunately had several more crime incidents that occurred over the Christmas break on the system. In terms of raw numbers, the crime isn't necessarily up, but some of the violent crime categories are. And frankly, that matches a lot of what's happening in the communities that those areas serve, unfortunately. So obviously, more visible police is helpful. Like a lot of law enforcement agencies, transit police is down on its head count compared to where they would want to be. And the GM has been working with the chief on ways to try to recruit and hire more officers. The 7000 series trains, hopefully, if you're on the system, you've seen more and more of them. We actually are beginning our 7-day inspection protocol today. So that will allow us to gradually be rolling out more and more trains as it comes. And so that's all good news. We had a really in-depth discussion about automatic train operations. So ATO is pretty standard. There's only 8 transit agencies around the world that do not use it. We were using it at WMATA until the 2009 Fort Totten collision. Interestingly, ATO was not actually a factor in that collision, as it turned out in the subsequent investigation, but it was immediately suspended at that time and it was never restored. So one of Randy's goals is to bring that back and bring it back in a much more aggressive timeline than I had previously told you all about, probably a year or so ago when we were talking about this. He's hoping to have elements of it in place in FY23 by the 4th quarter on the red line. We start in some controlled areas. We have to obviously work with our safety commission on this, but they've done a lot of work on testing already. And he's optimistic that we'll do that. So ATO will help us. I don't know if, even riding the new Silver Line, it's a pretty herky-jerky ride. I get motion sick and you feel it. And that's that's what happens when you have, operator run trains. But the biggest benefit is on the safety side. Human factor, human errors are a fact of life in everything you do. The vast majority of our incidents, like our red signal overruns, are caused by human errors. And sometimes not necessarily that the operator was distracted or impaired or anything, but just simply made a mistake, as happens on the road. So when you go to ATO, you really reduce those opportunities and you make things safer. So that's good news. The strategic transformation plan, many of you participated in a call with Randy and the team working on the strategic transformation plan. We got great input that's being incorporated. We're going to have separate public hearings on the strategic transformation plan than the budget. And we're hoping to have that come to our board by February so that we can adopt it. It actually is a condition of Virginia's dedicated funding that we have a strategic plan, but this one is much, much more comprehensive if you participate in those discussions and anything that we've done. And finally, Metro announced that the Potomac Yard station in Alexandria will open in May of 2023. On November 5th, they concluded work to tie in the station and the new tracks with the rest of the system. So it's now at 90% completion. And obviously, we're disappointed that it's not earlier, but there is a path towards completing and opening that station at this point, and good progress has been made. And so looking forward, as I mentioned, Finance Committee will make recommendations on the public hearing docket next Thursday. And then 2 weeks from that point, the full board will vote to finalize the public docket. We'll have some hearings in February, some budget work sessions, and then look at adopting the budget sometime in March or April. And as I said last month, probably almost immediately begin working on the 25 budget, which is really where we have our major shortfall due to not having access to the full array of funds from the federal government anymore. So that is my report, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I don't know if we mentioned you, I believe you're the finance chair. correct?
Yes,
So really
Yeah.
appreciate your knowledge and work on that one. It's gonna be a tough year.
yeah.
I have one question. I'll turn it over and I'm trying to look at it. When we're talking about the base fares,
Mhm.
so if I understand it correctly, the max is going up to 650.
Mhm.
The base is going from 225 down to 2.
Down to 2. And then the distance pricing is 40 cents after 3 miles per mile.
So are we able to see, because in my mind, that means DC riders are probably getting the biggest decrease, while those.
I wouldn't
Are probably getting an increase. the larger
Thoroughly
increase.
say there's much of a decrease anywhere, but it's true that some are getting less of an increase than others. There is, as part of the materials, kind of a more comprehensive breakdown and some sample trips. I mean, just based on the mileage rate, I think the maximum increase is still like only like 5 or 6% or something like that. I don't know, Greg, if you remember, but it wasn't huge, but it depends a little bit. And that is something that one of our board members has questioned lowering the base rate. The reason for it would be consistency with the bus rate, but it's something that's going out for public comment, so.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate, and I guess if there are ways to see it, I'm trying to understand, especially with the new Silver Line opening and the longer distances we see out here. I know it's always frustrating when things kind of sway against us and.
Yeah, so the max fare, I mean, I will say that most of the trips that you see, particularly like on the Silver Line or even the Orange Line, they would be much higher without the max fare cap.
Right.
And so we had some discussion about what the max fare should be. I was pushing for it to be, there was at one time, some board members were looking at a higher increase of that cap. And I pushed back on that. The GM ultimately decided to kind of go with a lower number. So it was kind of with that in mind.
I appreciate that. Let me open up to other questions. Yes.
Matt, so all last fall, you guys talked about your internal study on ridership post-COVID coming back and simplification. Is this the outcome of this simplification process?
Yeah, it's not overly
And
simple.
study, because it still doesn't sound particularly simple.
It's not particularly
for
simple.
outsiders, tourists and others. So
Yeah.
what's the timeline on further consideration of simplification of? the
Well,
maps?
we looked at 4 or 5 different options. The problem is because of the equity analysis that you have to do anytime you're looking at changes to fare structure, most of them would not pass the federal tests. Like we looked at a flat fare. We would never be able to do a flat fare. If you have it already in your system prior to those federal titles, you could do it like New York, but for us to try to do it, it would be a huge increase on various affected populations, and we would never be able to offset it. So that took a lot of things off the table. We looked at the other major option is some sort of a zone system. What we found with the zone systems is it really could be unfair depending on where you drew those lines. So I don't think the conversation is necessarily over on this. But in terms of something that could be implemented this year, the standardizing the mileage rate was kind of the easiest thing to do. And you're still gonna have to look at the chart. The chart will be a little bit less variation on some of those numbers, and the numbers won't be as funny as some of them are now. But it was, it was the easiest thing to try to implement quickly. I think we're open for discussion on other ideas, but the more we got into all of these other concepts, the more, holes that were being put through them. So,
How did you land on 40 cents?
well, the GM did, first of all. So, and the board is kind of just beginning now. It's work on that. So I don't know. I'm not sure how he landed exactly. I think Greg, do you have any?
Any details?
Yeah, I mean, we can get you more. There's a bunch of stuff going on in the public docket, which is went out. Is it today going out or the public hearing docket?
Oh, I'm not sure the exact timing. but
I think it's this week going out. There's all these supporting materials. So
Can you just remind us what the current mileage point is versus going to 40 cents? Sorry. I haven't asked a question yet. in a
No,
year.
that's
Now
okay.
we're getting some pointed ones.
yeah, that's all right.
That's
Okay,
fine.
Greg's gonna get back to us on that number.
Maybe magnifying glasses for how you.
What I was focused on when he presented it was really, what does it actually change? Like, what's the percentage increase? And we looked at some different, dummy trips between here and there, and, they weren't big changes, but.
I think I had Mr. Turner and then Ms. Crystal.
Thanks, just to clarify. So a mileage fee becomes self-regulating with DEI measures. Presumably a lower income population is going to travel less far to their place of business, to their shopping, so the metro is going to be a more short trip population for lower income populations, and therefore if it's a mileage rate, they're gonna pay a proportionately lower fee. Is that the?
Well, we have a mileage right now. That's the basis of the system. So
I mean, I would be drawn to a zone system. before we go to mileage.
The mileage rate has two factors. The mileage rate is both the actual mileage you travel on the system and the mileage as the crow flies between the 2 points on the system. It's complicated. When they originally put the mileage rate system in, I don't know if that was a consideration, because you have to remember then the system wasn't nearly as big. But the offset for any increase now by raising the rate is the low income fare program. Because you're now providing a 50% discount to a much broader population who qualify. And then the discussion around how to determine what that population is, the fairest thing the GM's proposing is to look at who's eligible for the SNAP program in each of the jurisdictions. There are slight differences in the eligibility requirement between the jurisdictions, and that was one of the questions I submitted. In fairness, so we, as Virginia, we submitted a bunch of budget questions. We have not gotten those back yet. That was one of the questions, but you know, like I said, this is at the proposal stage, so the board now has to do the work to get to the bottom of it.
Appreciate it. I see why Paul's not here. Sorry, I had Mr. McKay, and then we'll go back to Ms. Crystal.
Yeah, thank you. Two questions. One on the ATO.
Yeah.
You know, obviously remembering the red line crash, well, it's been a while since it was determined that that had nothing to do with the crash. Did the general manager give an explanation for, you know, why it's taken so long to consider bringing this back up? Is it because there's the need for the operational efficiencies? Is it just a new general manager's look? Or what, do we know what the prompt was for why 2023 was the year we wanted to do that?
So a lot of it had to do with the state of the infrastructure on the system and the amount of progress that needed to be made as part of state of good repair. And I will say that we did receive a different approach on this from the new general manager than we did from the previous one, who had kind of outlined a much longer runway on getting back to ATO. I think this general manager made it one of his top 2 or 3 priorities on rail, and is putting more resources into the remaining upgrades needed on the technical side and on the staff training side to update the system. I also think that the safety officer has had a chance who at the time, you know, now she's been here a couple of years, but it took her a little while to figure out that path, and then now she's executing it. So one of our questions has been why was this gap for so long? And you know, the answer when I first got on board was, well, we don't, technically speaking, we're not able to do this. Our signal system isn't up to snuff. It needs to be replaced, this and that. So now enough of that work has been done.
And will you have to go to the safety commission to get approval for that?
Yes.
And have they given you any indication?
They are aware of, no, but they are aware of our desire to do it. And I think they are being included in the process from the beginning in terms of how it's being set up so that they understand what's gone into it.
Okay. And last question, because I may have missed it, so I apologize, but I don't see it under fare optimization, but I'm presuming that there's no proposed change to parking fees.
There is not.
And so not even a reduction. I mean, to me, we can talk about max fare of $6.50, but to me, it's max fare of $6.50 plus parking and fare that people who drive to stations and the outer stations are paying. That's what their fare cost is.
Unless they take the
no
bus,
fare
yeah.
reduction for them in terms of parking then that's been proposed.
There are not, it was one of those revenue negative items, so.
But you could, under what's been advertised, similar to what we advertise as counties, you could come in under that. You couldn't go above 250 in the final budget.
I think that's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Did you have?
Yeah, it's
Found
really
the answer.
complicated.
I know it's complicated.
4 different mileage.
All right, so
That's what we're simplifying.
I
Yeah.
know we're talking about the
That's right.
current fare structure, so during the peak only.
Yeah, because we're getting rid of peak and off peak.
After the first 3 miles, 0.326 per mile, and then after 6 miles, it's 0.288 per mile.
Yeah.
So, and then it's changing to after the first 3 miles, it's 0.40.
Yes.
So that's what it is.
And I should have mentioned, so the concept of peak and off peak is no longer in this proposal. And that is a pretty big change.
Let me just say, sorry, those of you who are following, it is on, I believe, page 3, figure 3, page 3 of the section. All of that is there. All right, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, the concept of peak and off peak is changing because the percentage of riders in peak has gone down. And we actually see a lot of opportunity on off peak to grow, but.
All right, thank you. Ms. Crystal.
So Amy's right, it's really hard to see that image. So if you click through, it's slide 24, it looks like from the WMATA presentation. Yeah, just as an observation, I mean, this does seem like it's simplification for the purposes of how WMATA computes it. I just don't know that the rider is gonna.
I
experience
agree that for the customer, other than not having to worry about peak versus off
that,
peak.
and that's I think that actually is the benefit. And so as this rolls out to the, the broader ridership community, I think it is, getting rid of the peak and off peak is the what's going to change. It's the what's in it for me.
Yeah.
Is there a fiscal impact? You were just getting there with Jeff, but is there a fiscal impact of making this change?
Yeah, it is a revenue, it's a small revenue positive impact.
Okay, small revenue positive.
Yeah.
Good, okay,
Because the the average trip cost goes up a little
Yep.
bit.
okay. I find that helpful. Yeah, I would say, I mean, to me, I think there's a little bit of a, what is our goal with this here, right? Because I don't know, I think for all the reasons you've described, right? Actually, there's only so much simplifying we can do for the riders. I don't know, unless you have rider survey data, otherwise, that this is something riders necessarily been clamoring for, or suggested that this would be the reason they would or wouldn't return to the system. So I think I would have had some skepticism or even outright concern about it if it had a fiscal impact, but knowing that it's a small revenue positive, it certainly, if it makes it easier to run the system or clearer, then I think this is worth doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crystal. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Letourneau. Really appreciate your reports. And now we will move on to 6B.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sorry,
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Bagley, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't get myself unmuted in time. I have a quick question on the topic, if we still can.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can turn my. I'm just curious how the discussion about fare-free bus, I've seen in the news and discussion about that on the DC side. Does that have any impact in the proposed budget? Is there any context for that fare-free discussion and in this budget proposal?
I'll go to that in 1 second, but it also bought me time. So to answer your question, Katie, the ridership impact on the model is a plus 1.9 million on the fare simplification, and the budget impact is positive for 7 million.
Okay.
So it does help a little
Yeah.
on the gap because it's a little higher. Okay, the fare free bus. So we're discussing that on Thursday. The idea behind it is simply that whatever the District of Columbia is paying in its subsidy for bus, or whatever their share of that is, the DC government is going to be covering. So it ostensibly would not have an impact on the budget. It's the same amount of money, same piece of their subsidy. The question is just how it's being collected. Now, I will make a point, and it's kind of dangerous to freelance a little bit in an open meeting, but I will say, I think that there is a question about this because in the case of the district and their bus program, we know the level of fare evasion is extremely high, and we have counters on buses, so we can tell how high it is. And so the question is what the district being asked to pay based simply on the subsidy calculation, or could it be tied to what the actual ridership is, which is much higher than who's paying? Now that opens up all kinds of conversations, and you may have seen that the mayor's office is concerned about this proposal because from her point of view, those of us who might be Virginian, but in the district for business for the day can now ride the bus within the district for free, and the district is paying for that. So I guess it depends a little bit on how you look at it, but ultimately, the Metro Board will have to approve an MOU with the district government. And my understanding is that's not coming anytime soon, but we are beginning discussions about it next week. I definitely have a lot of questions. I mean, we have been, in my point of view, subsidizing district's ridership for years since fare evasion was decriminalized. And they've been getting a very good deal. So I want to make sure that, you know, it's a good deal for everybody going forward.
Well, be careful what
Thank
you
you.
ask for. Thank you, Ms. Bagley. All right, with that, I think we are ready to move on to our report from normally our committee chair, but Mr. Alcorn, who's our committee chair, is not available to be here tonight. Renata, who's been so patient, has a report for us, I believe, from the WMATA committee meeting in December.
Yes, so last month, the WMATA committee met on December 9th, and we were briefed by WMATA staff on the WMATA strategic transformation plan, as Mr. Letourneau mentioned, which will be a long-term strategy to direct WMATA's day-to-day decision-making over the next 5 years. So during this meeting, we had a really great discussion, and also the committee was able to provide feedback to WMATA staff on the plan. The next WMATA committee meeting is scheduled for January 25th at 6 p.m. and it will be in the NBTC suite to discuss comments on Metro's FY 2024 budget. As we've done in previous years, staff is proposing to work closely with the WMATA committee chair to draft a letter to WMATA based on feedback received at this meeting. The letter would then be submitted to WMATA once the public comment period is open and shared with the commission at the next meeting. And as always, all commissioners are invited to attend the WMATA committee meeting and to share your thoughts on the upcoming, or on the 2024 budget. So if you're interested in attending, please let Rhonda know and stay tuned for emails on meeting logistics.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have general agreement that the WMATA committee should work with staff to draft and submit a letter reflecting the committee's comments on the WMATA FY 2024 budgets? I'm seeing head nods.
And Madam Chair, if I just, the timing is really awkward,
Okay,
right?
yes.
The things come out after this meeting, docket opens, and so we did this last year. It seemed to work really well. So it's just getting a sense of the room that hopefully we can make that same thing happen so we can get the timing right.
Excellent. Yes. And so definitely people should follow that. And I guess email you if they have any additional
Well,
comments.
we do let all the commissioners know about our committee meeting, so that's probably the best way. But if you have a specific desire, you want to make sure either me or Rhonda, let us know and we'll make sure that you get the information on that committee meeting.
And maybe Ms. Matez, because this is happening at that next committee meeting, maybe we'll send out an extra special reminder of when it's happening, how people can participate. Do we know yet if it's virtual or in person?
It will be in person.
Okay.
And I know.
But we can watch virtually.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Do you have that? No.
It's January 25th at 6 p.m. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So January 26th at 6 p.m. is the WMATA.
So it's a Wednesday, the 25th at 6 p.m.
Excellent. So please tune in if you're interested and would like to participate in that. And that is the committee meeting where staff will work with the committee on that letter. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I believe that concludes our WMATA portion for this evening. And we are on to number 7. And I also want to welcome Commissioner Watkins for joining us, and having little ones at home is difficult in the evening. And so I believe we are going to hear tonight from MBTC's legislative liaison, Amy, Karen Seibert, who is joining us virtually to provide an update on the upcoming General Assembly session, followed by Executive Director Kate Mattice to give us the federal update.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me?
We can, thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little scratchy. I'm sort of getting over a cold, but
The whole world.
I know. I was just grateful it was this week, not next week. So again, thank you for having me. As you all know, the General Assembly session starts next week on Wednesday, and we will start our short session, which is probably approximately 46 days. So starting on January 11th and hopefully ending on February 25th, which is a Saturday. And so far, I'll be honest, not a lot of bills have been filed yet. So we don't have a lot, if any, bills dealing specifically with transit or transportation. There are a couple bills filed so far that actually would remove the local grocery tax, which I know is probably a concern because, you know, last year we went through that and they took away the state part but left the local piece. And there are a couple bills that have been filed to remove that local piece. So those are bills we'll be keeping an eye on for sure. The one bill that has been filed is Delegate Austin has filed a bill for VRE. That bill is still, while it's been filed, still kind of a work in progress. We are still working with Director DeBrule and folks in the administration to finalize the details of that bill. So stay tuned. There'll be more to come on that, but that bill is in there, and that bill is is a bill that was dealing with the issue that NBTC has heard from VRE, dealing with funding as we move forward from DRPT. So that's all we really have seen so far. But you know, we obviously have our NBTC legislative agenda. I will be keeping an eye on all the bills that fall into all the categories that we care about. And as our colleagues and other folks up here in Northern Virginia get bills filed, we will keep an eye on them and let you all know about those. So happy to answer any questions. Obviously, the budget came out from the governor. There was also no changes to any of our transit or transportation funding. So I think that is another important piece for us to continue to keep an eye on. You know, budget amendments are due the first Friday of session, and then we'll start seeing what amendments people will be suggesting after that. So that'll all be happening. It'll be a fast and furious first 2 weeks of session, I'm sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amy. I have a question I probably know the answer to, but I want to ask it anyway. Of those bills looking to remove the local option for the grocery tax, which funds many things, including schools, transportation, et cetera, mental health. Do any of those bring in any of that state budget surplus to supplement that reduction?
Not that I can tell not from the language in the bills. So I don't know if there's any corresponding budget amendments that would do that. But at the moment, they are just bills that would just eliminate the local part of the grocery tax.
Right. Excellent. Really I appreciate the information.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Amy from our commissioners? And I know, I believe, Kate will talk about some opportunities for legislative days. So, okay, I was going to go to that. So Kate, go ahead.
So actually, I'm going to go to that first. Indeed, so there are a handful of legislative opportunities down in Richmond to go and meet and greet and work issues. The VACO VML has their annual legislative day on Thursday, January 19th. And also the Virginia Transit Association will be holding their annual Transit Advocacy Day on Monday, January 23rd. I'm pretty sure information on that was actually sent out to all of the commissioners. That is obviously 100% focused on public transit, including a really nice reception they usually have in the train station in that evening. And so I know we're going to have a number of our commissioners going down there for that. So definitely want to take advantage of that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we do not currently have a legislative committee on the calendar. And we're sort of keeping it a little bit fluid, obviously knowing what happens next Wednesday with bills dropping, whether we're going to be needing to pull together the legislative committee. So just a heads up that we may look, if we need to bring that group together in probably early February. No matter what, though, we do provide updates on legislative activities. Ken usually sends something out to our legislative committee as well as our staff that we work the legislative liaisons that support all of you. Usually on Fridays with the latest and greatest. We're very fortunate, Amy, as well as Joe and others are very well connected with the legislative liaisons that serve the rest of Northern Virginia. So there's a wonderful network that keeps people and they're all watching this stuff. So I think that's a really good thing. think the other thing I just wanted to mention is a huge thank you to everybody who came out to the joint NVPC PRTC legislative forums that we had. It seems like a really long time ago, but it was actually just about a month ago. And we had over 100 people representing us. We had Congressman Byer and many of you and Jen DeBrule and the transit general managers. And I think it was a really positive, good energy event. And so we do, just heads up, we are potentially looking at a different venue for next year. So don't worry, right? Tyson? So let us know early on. But we obviously want to make it, we're obviously, this is something that's done joint with PRTC and they have folks coming up from Spotsylvania. But it's always, the cheese will move a little, but just think we have opportunities at other locations. So I did want to put that out there. And finally, just federal, we talked tons and tons about this amazing, wonderful earmark we have coming on. Of course, that was part of a larger FY23 omnibus appropriations bill that in the transportation space, it fully funds the infrastructure law. It also added some additional funding for emergency response for both transit and road repairs. Probably most of the rest of the other parts of the country will use it more than we will, but that's actually a big deal for public transit. They don't typically get funding to respond after sort of natural disasters. And so that was actually already baked into that appropriations bill. So that are the updates that I have.
Awesome. Excellent. Any of the other questions from our commissioners, for Ms. Matthijs or for Amy? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 8, which is Virginia Railway Express. VRECO Rich Dalton is here to give his reports. Come on up. And our newly elected VRE Operations Board Chair, Walkinshaw. I know they had a lively meeting. We'll present the action item. Congratulations, Mr. Walkinshaw, I think. And all right, so Rich, you guys want to go ahead and give your report first?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, commission members and others. I'll be very concise. I know we have a couple of action items to go through here. But I will note that later this month, we will distribute our annual report and that'll likely be part of your next month's package, if you will. So I'll make a couple of comments and stuff as it relates to that annual report, just like others in the region, NVTC included. Just a lot of cool things happen in 22, and we look forward to similar, if not more, really good things going on in calendar year 2023. But I will say that just consistent with reporting a few metrics, our calendar year 2022 total ridership actually doubled from calendar year 2021. Albeit still at levels below 2020, but it's heading in the right direction. We finally we eclipsed the 1 million total ridership mark, so we increased about 120% for the calendar year. From a system performance standpoint, for the entire year. We were slightly below our target. We're about 87%. That was actually the same for the previous fiscal year. We were at 87% for the calendar year. So a little bit, in addition to ridership, a little bit of work to do there on the system reliability. You have the CEO report in your package. And a lot of other information from last month's operations board meeting. So can answer any questions from there, Madam Chair.
No, thank you very
That's my
much.
summary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dalton. While we have you, I guess if you could give a little background, a little bit, I think it's in the report on the performance, why you think it's there and kind of what we're looking at for the future, the 87% performance.
Sure. So one of the largest factors affecting our on-time performance is just congestion. Congestion from, the freight railroads that we operate within. And of course, there's Amtrak trains out there as well. So it's really congestion, and it kind of plays into obviously one of the reasons why We're moving forward, headed, in partnership with the Commonwealth through Transforming Rail in Virginia, is being able to, increase that capacity and in addition to operating additional trains, more frequency, but to mitigate those effects of congestion. So I would say for both years, calendar year 2022 and calendar year 2021, those were the top delay categories for us.
I appreciate, I would add, daycare drop off this morning. We heard about flight delays, but I heard from another parent, they had a 7-hour train delay on their holiday trip, so.
Not on VRE.
No, I'm saying, dealing with Amtrak, Sorry. The congestion piece. We're all a little congested.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you're dealing with all of that
Absolutely.
traffic on there. Okay. We'll really appreciate that work, and I know you had some great Santa rides and looking
Awesome.
forward to continuing that improvement. Doubling from last year is great, and hopefully we'll see at least that this year.
It's headed in the right direction.
Exactly. All right, to that, we do have Mr. Walkinshaw for his report on the operations board recommendations.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for being late. We do have 2 action items for VRE tonight. Action item 8B is approval of resolution 2494 to adopt and refer VRE's FY 2023 revised and 2024 recommended budgets to the jurisdictions. The VRE Operations Board recommends commission approval of resolution 2494. Which will, as I noted, approve the amended FY 23 operating and capital budget and recommended FY 24 operating and capital budget. The resolution also authorizes the CEO to refer them to the jurisdictions for their formal review and adoption, as well as authorizes the executive director for the BTC and PRTC to take the necessary actions to apply for federal and state grant funding. We have Mark Schofield here tonight to answer questions and share a little bit about the budget. I do want to just address a little bit the issue around the jurisdictional subsidy, which we spent a lot of time on the VRE Operations Board discussing. And by way of context, over the last several budget years during the pandemic, we had, in response to the challenging budgets that jurisdictions were facing and the low ridership, we had reduced the jurisdictional subsidies and had been moving back to the pre-pandemic jurisdictional subsidy, which totaled pre-pandemic $18.3 million. In FY 23, the total jurisdictional subsidy was $13.5 million. So less than pre-pandemic, but higher than the year before that. The staff recommendation this year was to return to the full pre-pandemic jurisdictional subsidy of $18.3 million. And the jurisdictional subsidy on VRE is based on the master survey of riders that we conduct annually. We conducted for the first time since the pandemic, and that determines the share of the jurisdictional subsidies of that total. We had a vigorous discussion at the operations board with some jurisdictions feeling that now is not the right time to return to paying the full jurisdictional subsidies. And some of us, myself and Ms. Bagley, who's not here, included arguing that, oh, she's online, okay. Arguing that we need to get back to paying the full jurisdictional subsidies pursuant to the master agreement as the WMATA compact members have been doing, and being easier to do that next year than it is this year. We settled on a compromise of an increase in the jurisdictional subsidy from 13.5 million to 16 million, which was about halfway between two figures that were being debated. Certainly, my perspective, I'm hopeful that next year we'll be back to paying that full subsidy pursuant to the master agreement. Obviously, we have flexibility to even have this debate because of the federal COVID relief funds that we have, but we're cognizant of the need to continue the return to ridership that we've seen, and Mark can talk about that and our goals for return to ridership, as well as make sure that we have the runway and breathing room that we need over the next 3, 5, and 10 years to continue to operate the system. So that's the recommendation of the operations board, and with that, I can turn it over to Mr. Schofield if folks have questions or if there's anything else you want to share with the budget.
No, I had a couple points I was going to make, which I think you covered them very well. And I'd also like to express my appreciation to you for how that discussion was handled. And I think we've ended up on a path as far as getting back to the level of the subsidy that I think works and is long-term sustainable for VRE. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. One question, and I think you had it here, trying to understand a little bit of the changes in ridership in the formula. So it seems that, I assume it's the jurisdictions that are a little bit farther away that we're less interested because the formula would now is increased, I guess not in their favor, but in their increases in their subsidy, if that's appropriate.
I want to be careful not to characterize their position, but yeah, the ridership survey showed that the ridership return has been faster in the jurisdictions in the I-95 corridor that have longer trips. So relative to the MVTC jurisdictions, quite frankly, some of those jurisdictions would have seen a small increase as a result of the ridership trends. But that's how the master survey works. And that happens before the pandemic. That happened every year with VRE, with some jurisdictions paying more and some paying less from year to year.
And I believe in addition to the subsidy, it also could change or did change the composition of the board. What's the impact there?
That's right. So the master agreement says that any jurisdiction with more than 25% of ridership will have 3 members of the operations board. Fairfax County, I think in 2019, for the first time, had 25.6% of ridership or something like that. So we have 3 members of the operations board. On this survey, we dropped slightly below 25% of ridership. So starting in FY24, Fairfax County will have 2 members of the operations board rather than 3. Nobody gained a seat, but Fairfax County did lose a seat.
Well, appreciate that update.
Chair.
It was a rough start.
Well, we appreciate that you're there representing us in Fairfax. And comments, yes, Mr. DeFronti.
I guess I just need a little refresher. You described the subsidy discussion, and my recollection on the federal funding is that it's more than a year where this will be an assistance, maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think Mark could best speak to that.
But I'm kind of trying to fit that together with the discussion about, the master agreement and sort of the importance of paying for the services that are there while also balancing, where localities are. So I don't know if you can speak to the federal subsidy and how it works.
Sure. So VRE has received pandemic relief through 3 different sort of tranches, the CARES Act, the CRISA Act, and then the American Rescue Plan. And so we have drawn down all of our CARES Act money over the last 3 years. We are now beginning to draw down the Rescue Plan money. We have actually prioritized that to be number 2 in the queue because it has deadlines that come earlier. That Rescue Plan money should last us for 3 or 4 years, probably. Depends on the burn rate, depends on how fast ridership comes back, depends on jurisdictional contributions, all those other revenue pieces that come in. And then when that's done, we'll transition to the CRISA money. Our goal is to really try to balance. We understand that, especially early in the pandemic, we wanted to give relief to the jurisdictions, use the pandemic money, but we also want that money to have as long of a runway as possible to give us time to get the ridership back.
And perhaps not unrelated to the structural challenges that you kind of highlighted, James.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think all of these things are connected, right? The pace of return to ridership, and we have the goal of getting to 10,000 riders a day in FY24. Right now, if we continued on our current trajectory, we would exceed that goal, but that's the goal. So how quickly does ridership continue to return dictates how quickly the federal funds are drawn down. And the argument that I made with respect to the subsidy is that every day that passes, we don't return to paying the subsidy, pre-pandemic subsidy pursuant to the master agreement, is one less day of runway that we have to operate the system as ridership.
But it's both return to ridership and then there's the sort of change in the way, work from home and federal that is also a piece of this.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to that, I think I'm reminded, it is part of our legislative package, correct? Related to the federal work from home policies. So I assume there are no updates there, but that we continue to advocate for not having it be the Monday, Friday, work from home. All right, well, to that, seeing no other questions, just double check any questions online. We're good. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Schofield and Mr. Dalton. Really appreciate your work. And we do have some action items.
Yeah, so I'll move approval of resolution 2494 to approve the amended FY 2023 and recommended FY 2024 VRE budgets.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Think I heard Ms. Burrell.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have one more action item. This is 8C. The VRE Operations Board also recommends commission approval of resolution 2495, which will authorize the VRE CEO to submit on behalf of the commission's VRE applications to the I-95 commuter choice FY 2024-2025 program. It should be noted that the commission's actions does not constitute approval of any VRE applications or eliminate the need for the VRE application to qualify for funding based on an objective evaluation using criteria established for the adopted I-395 meter choice project selection process. VRE staff have identified a group of capital and operating improvements that support and implement planned service enhancements authorized in the Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative and are proposed for inclusion in a VRE commuter choice applications. They include Transforming Rail in Virginia post-acquisition service start, step-up service restart, and fare buy-down capital funding for VRE station improvements. Move approval of resolution.
Second, okay, excellent. Yes, go ahead, Ms.
Yeah,
Crystal.
absolutely. So very excited to see in this list the additional round trip proposed on both lines. Can you tell us any more about what you're thinking? What spots we were finally able to get from the host railroads, when those might run?
So, Madam Chair, so in the, there are some pre-designated train slots in the, we refer to them as the post-acquisition train slots that are already called out in the schedule and stuff like that. So that's effectively what we're pursuing.
So the ones that have been in the sites of the system for a while.
Yes.
You see. Still a good thing.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we vote? All right, to that, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Awesome. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Excellent. That carries with another unanimous vote. And now thank you both very much. I hope you have a safe travels back home.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Moving on. Oh, sorry, Mr. Walkinshaw, if you wanted to share with us our operations board slate.
Yeah, so information item 8D, the 2023 VRE Operations Board officers. As noted, I'll serve as chair for the year. The vice chair is Meg Bomke, representing PRTC in Stafford County. Treasurer is our very own Sarah Bagley. Congratulations, Sarah. And the secretary is Ralph Smith, City of Manassas.
Excellent. Well, congratulations to you both. You have a fun year ahead, excellent year ahead. Thank you for representing us on the VRE Operations Board. To that, seeing no further questions on VRE, we will move on to number 9, the DRPT, Department of Rail and Public Transportation. And we do have Ms. Director DeBrule for her reports. Ms. DeBrule?
Good evening, everyone. I will be brief. Our written report is in your package. I'll just draw your attention to a couple of items. The Commonwealth Transportation Board did meet in December. We did have I would say, mid-cycle revenue adjustment, an uplift, much smaller than some of the revenue changes we saw earlier in the year, but we did revise our 6-year program and provide an additional $1.8 million to NVTC for WMATA. In the same action, the board also approved a mid-cycle slate of projects under our Transit Ridership Incentive Program, which included a little over $7 million to Loudoun County for some new bus service connecting to the Silver Line station. So some good news from Northern Virginia out of that 6-year program revision. We have recently received revenue forecasts looking forward into our fiscal 24 program that were not entirely reflected in the governor's budget, but are also positive and trending above what we were expecting for the fiscal year 24 program, slightly above forecast. So that's good news for us as well. We're working with all of our partner agencies around the Commonwealth to submit applications as part of our grant cycle, which is open until February 1st. So really, really busy time of year for all of us as the General Assembly comes into session and as we're working on our budget and our program for the next fiscal year, and just continue to appreciate the partnership we have with all the local jurisdictions and with NVTC. That will conclude my report for tonight.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate that. I do also want to note there is a communications workshop on January 9th from 1 to 2, I believe, hosted by DRPT. So thank you for the good news and for the excellent work ahead. We will now move on to action item number 10A, our Executive Director's report newsletter.
So indeed, we've got this month's newsletter, which has a lot of great photos and capturing from our legislative event, information on our new dashboard, as well as highlights of our WMATA report. So again, it's a great place to sort of quickly capture some of the things that we've been working on, especially within the last month. Just a reminder, we do have a couple of meetings coming up. We mentioned earlier, the WMATA committee will be meeting on Wednesday, January 25th at 6 p.m. That will be upstairs. So that is an in-person meeting. We do need in-person forum to be able to allow people to participate remotely. Also, we may need to convene a legislative policy committee meeting, but stay tuned. Maybe not. And that's always a good thing. Our next commission meeting will be here on February 2nd at 7 p.m. The executive committee will be meeting upstairs prior to that. And as I mentioned before, VTA is going to be holding its annual Transit Advocacy Day in Richmond on Monday, January 23rd. Including your materials are the November financial reports, and Scott's online, and I'm here to answer any questions, and that concludes my report.
Look at that. Well, we must have closed session after this. So really appreciate that. Looking forward to attending the General Assembly meeting, especially the 23rd on transportation. And any questions or comments for Ms. Matthijs?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Senator.
We just had 2 quick requests. First of all.
Sorry, could you speak up, Mr. Senator?
Sure.
Thank you.
Just 2 quick requests. I wonder if our legislative person in Richmond could help us with message points that we ought to be communicating on the 23rd. And the second one was during the public session, there were some questions about our plan, some studies that were raised by the Coalition for Smarter Growth, and I wonder if we can just provide a response, including safe access to transit stops and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Which I think is in our work plan.
So we do, and in fact, I want to make sure that Amy is having some talking points for our commissioners when they go down for any opportunities. They're down in Richmond. We obviously have our legislative agenda as well. And we make sure that people get an email out to provide that. The studies that we've identified in our work plan are again, ones that our staff has proposed. And so those are things that we hope to be able to use our internal research funding. And so we'll come back to the commission to talk about, but that, the safe routes is definitely one that we have. So, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Okay, so to that, are there any final questions before closed session? Seeing none, before we adjourn, we do need to go into closed session. It's a follow-up from last month's closed session. For the benefit of the listening public, we do plan to return to open session. The YouTube feed will continue with it muted and a screen notice stating that we are in closed session. The meeting will resume live when we return to open session. In case of technical difficulties and the live feed is interrupted, viewers should check our YouTube channel for a new feed. Can I have a motion to enter? Oh, sorry. So let me read the motion. Pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711.a.1 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission convene a closed meeting for discussion of a personnel matter concerning the annual performance of the executive director. Can I have a motion? So moved by Mr. Aguirre, second. I heard multiple, Mr. Eben, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 One more aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we will now wait for our room to be cleared of non-commissioners so that we may go into closed session. That's all right. Okay, so I will ask for, I will read the certification, will ask for a motion. The Northern Virginia Transportation Commission certifies that. Are we good online? Sorry. Okay, to the best of each member's knowledge and with no individual member dissenting at the just concluded closed session. One, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Freedom of Information Act were discussed. And two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered. May I have a motion? I heard Mr. Aguirre, second, by Mr. DeFerranti. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Excellent. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Excellent. The motion carries. And we have, here, a motion by, from Mr. Aguirre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission approve the Sixth Amendment to the employment agreement with Kate Mattice as the NVTC Executive Director, that the chair be authorized to execute it on behalf of the commission.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McKay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, well, with that, we now have our motion and a new contract for our executive director. Congratulations. We're very excited to have you stay on another year. And to that, this concludes our meeting.